I think every single person who posts something on social media should have a mental filter every single time, which is, why am I sharing this? What is the purpose of this content? That's your first guardrail. The second guardrail is, if you wouldn't feel comfortable seeing your post as a full page ad in the New York Times, don't post it. So you have to know your guardrails, or you can get yourself in so much trouble. Especially in the world we live in today, where there's so many things that are upsetting, or you're passionate about, or you feel like you have to say something. Well, do you? Think about who your stakeholders are. If you say that thing, what are your clients going to think? What's your boss going to, what are your children going to think? So really thinking through pebble in the pond, you throw a pebble into the pond, that ripple effect.
A ripple.
That's how I always like to visualize a social media post that can go wrong.
So today's guest is an award-winning marketer, a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, a podcaster, a personal branding expert, and we know how important your personal brand is, and a career development coach. So without further ado, let me have the pleasure of introducing you to Aliza Licht. Aliza, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to speak with you today.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you.
You are welcome. Okay, so Aliza is in New York now, and all my listeners know, even though I'm not in New York now, from this Kim's English, I'm a native New Yorker. So I'm always excited. I feel like I'm back home. And whenever I speak in New York, I'm so excited because nobody makes fun of my accent. So, so Aliza, I like to do things a little differently. And I know you're the founder of Leave Your Mark. And what I'd like to ask you is, what is an experience that you've had in your life that has allowed you to leave your mark? That's an experience that actually practically everybody doesn't know about. They can't Google it. They can't read about it. They can't stalk you on social media. That's a joke. Don't go stalking. An experience that's really shaped and influenced your success today that most people don't know about, because everybody thinks it's an upward trajectory.
Wow. So, it's funny because so much of my life is online that I'm trying to think of what someone wouldn't know. I think that my experience that shaped me today is really coming from strong women leaders in my own household. And
tell us.
So my grandmother, Hilda, actually ended up living with us for 13 years when her health was on the decline. She actually was a Holocaust survivor. And between her and my mother, everyone was so strong and opinionated and just very confident. And even though I grew up with a stutter and was very scared to speak in public, I know, crazy, this is why it's wild, they both instilled such confidence in me that I was able to overcome that. And my sister and I always joke, like, we were encouraged to push back in our household. And my dad, of course, allowed that too. But I think being with two generations of women who were really just personalities really helped shape who I am today.
Strong, Jewish, educated New York women. What could have possibly gone wrong?
A lot went wrong and a lot went right.
Okay, so give us an example where the listeners can hear this and feel that, wow, I'm not surprised at all that she's become so successful. But at the time, it might not have seemed that way, right? Because especially like when things go wrong at the time, when things are going wrong, we feel like, oh my gosh, doom and gloom. But we look back on that, and usually that's really informative to our success.
Yeah. So I think to me, what comes to mind is really third grade. I was sitting in class and I had made this wooden colored bracelet, beaded bracelet. And my English teacher called on me to read a paragraph out loud. And I was so panic stricken. And I just kept on sort of like playing with the bracelet on my hand to the point that I wasn't saying anything, but she kept on saying, like, do you hear me, Aliza? Do you hear me? And I was getting so.
Excuse me, is this when you were stuttering? Is this when you had the stutter?
I didn't know I had a stutter. I didn't
okay.
know. Okay. So she's calling on me to read and she's really kind of being nasty about it, like as if I'm not paying attention. So I yank the bracelet in just my anxiety and the beads fly all over the classroom. And I get in trouble because now I'm disruptive and not reading,
Right.
of course. So when I came home, my mother, the way that she handled that was not like, I can't believe you got in trouble and why would you be disruptive in a class? She was like, I think that you're a little scared to speak sometimes. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to take you to see someone that is going to help you learn how to speak confidently in public situations. So I grew up in Long Island. From that point on, she drove me to the city once a week to a speech pathologist. So when I think about that story, and then I think about speaking on stage at Carnegie Hall or speaking live on Good Morning America or the Today Show, the fact that I can do those things today is because of the way that she handled that.
Yes. Wow, that's a great story, and I have goosebumps because so I'm one of five, and I'm three in a row. I'm the youngest girl, and I had some kind of a speech impediment. I don't know. I don't even know what it was. Check this out. And my mother used to say, so she took me probably to a clinic in Brooklyn. We didn't have any money, but she took me to a clinic, and they said, well, you have to do these exercises. And back then, remember the black and white composition notebooks? So my mother loves to tell the story that my two sisters, she finally get rid of the two of them, off to school or whatever they did. And she said, I have this here too. She said to this, she goes, I would come and my mother would be like, oh, great. I can sit down, have a cup of coffee. As any woman would, right? She goes, I would come running with my black and white composition book and give it to my mother and make her do the exercises with me. Now, she didn't begrudge it at all. I mean, if you knew my mother, she was amazing. But, she would say it like, I can appreciate it as a mother, right? It's like, oh my God, I get 2 minutes. Oh, that's right. And so she said, it taught me how to talk and I haven't shut up since. But if our mothers didn't do that for us,
Yes.
who knows? That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I'm sure, does your mother realize how much of an influence that had on you?
Oh yeah. We're super
okay. Good. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your life today and how you do it all. Because unlike most people, I believe women can have it all. We just have to define what all means. Well, one of my books, Not Tonight, Dear, I've Got a Business to Run, Enrich Your Marriage, Life, Prospering in Your Business. I have a career. You have a career. I have a family. You have a family. So I'm a little upset about this. We can't have it all. So you can do it. But how?
How do I do it? Well, first of all, my kids are older now. I have a daughter in high school and a son who's a freshman in college. I would say when they were younger, I was surrounded by really supportive people. When I was in the corporate world for 17 years at Donna Karan, my boss and my mentor, Patty Cohen, allowed me to work from home when work from home was not a thing back then in 2005, right? I worked from home 1 day a week. And then when my daughter was born in 2008, I worked from home 2 days a week. So getting that flexibility in a time when, I worked in fashion. So FaceTime was everything. And that allowed me to have this very intense corporate career, but also be a mom of two little kids. And I'll say I do attribute a lot of my ability to multitask to the fact that I'm a Gemini. So I'm a very
What
big
month is that? I only
June,
know my month.
June
June.
6th.
Okay.
So
Okay.
super strong communicator and multitasker. So if
Mhm.
they always say give a busy person more work, they
Mhm.
can handle it, right? So I'm someone who blocks time on my calendar. I make meetings with myself when I know I need to be heads down, focusing on something. And I get like 7 or 8 hours of sleep, but essentially I try to do everything that's due in the minute I hear about it. So I'm not
Mhm.
someone who puts off things, like especially in a work environment. Like if something needs to happen, I'm going to do it right then and there if I can. So things don't pile up. So my biggest fear in life is things piling up, essentially.
Hmm.
So I'm
Why
very,
is
very,
that a fear? Why is that a fear?
because I don't want to feel stressed about it. Like even in college, when you study for exams, like I would always back myself up like 2 weeks and make like a very civilized schedule. So I'm very disciplined in that way. So for
Mhm.
me, I just carve my time, and I believe in, work is work and then personal life is personal life. So I try to like go really hard during the workday and then, be off of it when I'm with my family.
So there's so much of what you just said that I want to follow up on. Okay, so let's just go to the two strategies that you provided, which I agree with, and I want to talk a little bit about them. You mentioned multitasking and boundaries. So let's start with the multitasking. Lately, the term multitasking is like out of fashion, right? Like if you multitask, it takes you 20 minutes to get back, blah, blah, blah. I will tell you, if I didn't multitask when I was raising my four children, and working, nobody would have ever had dinner. Homework would have never gotten done. The wash stayed when it was dry in the basket and they pulled it out. I mean, the reality is if I didn't multitask, things just wouldn't get done. So it sounds like you feel the same way. Do you hear that backlash now on the whole multitasking thing?
I don't, but I think that that's ridiculous. I mean, first of all, you know, everyone's default setting is busy now. There's no one who isn't busy. It's
True.
the question of how do you power through busy? I power through busy by moving quickly through the things that I
And
need to
being
do.
organized.
Organized, moving quickly, and also knowing that like if I get certain things done, it just makes the next day that much more efficient.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I love that. I love that. And then boundaries, right? I know when I'm coaching both men and women, but I feel like I say this more to women. I'm like, look, when you're at work, be all in at work. And when you're at home, be all in at home. Because what women tend to do is when we're at work or working, whatever that means, we feel guilty that we're not with the kids or whatever. I'm like, all that does is waste your energy. It
Mhm.
makes you less productive, less efficient in both areas of your life. So when you're working, when you're home, be at home. What do you think so many people have a hard time with the boundary thing?
Well, I think there is I mean, mom guilt is real. Let's just be honest. I mean, we've
Right.
all had it. But I think also at the same time, I think if you're like a working person, working parent, um, the other thing that happens is there's this whole social life that comes along with being a professional person, right? And a lot of people have trouble saying no to things. They feel like they
Mm-hmm.
have to be everywhere. Maybe it's fear of missing out. Maybe they just feel like they need to be seen at a certain thing. So I'm someone, I I am the joy of missing out. Like I literally feel nothing about there's a huge event Monday night, a huge gala for women. And people were like, "Are you going?" I'm like, "No, I'm not going." Like I literally am like,
I know which one you're talking about. I know which
yes.
one you're talking about.
So
People ask me about it too. I'm like, no, I'm not
yeah.
flying up
So
for that. Yeah.
I so therefore I protect my time. The other thing that I do that is maybe, different is I lean very heavily on tech tools to make my organization very, very efficient. So Calendly, for example, booking a
Mm-hmm.
meeting via Calendly, that takes away so much of the back and forth and like lost
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
items. Or having a consulting link where someone is, wants to pick your brain, which is a time suck, right? And it's really hard to say no, right? So if it's like someone you don't know and it's really consulting, I'll say, sure, I'm happy to meet with you. Feel free to book a time. And when they open it up, they realize there's a payment involved with that. So
Oh
I'm
my gosh. The whole thing is I want to have lunch with you is like I want to pick your brain for
Yeah.
sure.
So, I mean, obviously, with a friend, you're going to do it, but anybody else, it's consulting.
Yeah.
So, I'm extremely protective over my time.
I love that. I love that. You mentioned earlier, I think you used the term time management. What I work with people, I want to know how you feel about this, is that there's not a time management problem. It's a time priority issue. And you've got it down. I mean, you absolutely have it down.
Yeah. I mean, listen, every single person gets the same hours in the day. So,
24,
it's just a question of how you spend that time.
you use it. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's get into this. I cannot wait to hear what you think about this. You talked about RTO back in the day. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that you were given that opportunity, if you will, privilege, whatever you want to say, to work RTO because they knew you. You had a reputation. I already know if I want something done, if I give it to Aliza, it's done. I don't have to, right? I don't have to worry about it.
True.
Um, I am beside myself with this push back into the office because when we had the remote work, like, oh, you can't do it until you had to do it, right?
Yeah.
And now there's a couple working mothers have been begging to work from home. Work begging, right? The other thing is, if every time they talk about the culture, I'm like, why don't you just change the word culture for control? Because how much mentoring do these people really think is going on in Wall Street? It's a bunch of bull. It happens on the golf course. It happens at the bar or whatever. And then somebody said to me, a very smart person said to me, well, Dr. Cadian, don't you know why there's this pushback into the office by all these big banks? And don't even get me started on JP Morgan Chase. Don't even get me started. They're like, if you look at their portfolios, they all have commercial real estate. And I'm like, so, and I don't like to do this, but I feel like it's a middle-aged male white thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when's the last time these executives had to worry about the plumber coming and getting to work or picking the kid up from school or whatever it is? So what do you think about what's going on with this push back? And while I was waiting for you, I was reading an article on LinkedIn about the whole RTO and back in the office and blah. And now it's this gamesmanship, right? Now it's like, yeah, okay, you have to be back in 4 days a week. People go in, they do FaceTime, they let the people know that they're there that need to know, and they're out. It's such a joke. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on that? And how do you coach people with that concept?
First of all,
The influencers.
I love what you said. Change culture to control. That's 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
100% true. Um, At the same time, though, I do think a lot more gets done. There's efficiencies that happen when you're in front of people.
Sure.
Up over to somebody's
No
desk
doubt.
quickly, So I think the hybrid model works best. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that honestly, then, parents can schedule their important appointments on the days that they work from home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that makes the most sense. I
Mm-hmm.
really do think there's something great about going into the office and collaborating, but at the same time, having the flexibility when you need it. Personally, I also think like we should have a 4-day work week. So that's
Well, years ago, I was coaching a CEO in the entrepreneurial space, and he started to talk about a 4-day work week. I was like, "You're out of your mind." And then I realized, so corporate, like you don't want to be that guy that scheduled or that gal that scheduled a meeting on a Friday. Like nothing gets done anyway.
yes.
It really is amazing. So I agree with you. I agree with you on that. The issue, of course, then becomes, so what's the pay scale look like? I'll be honest with you. When I've coached women and they have a baby and they want to cut back to 4 days, I say, please don't do that. Because what's going to happen is you're still going to work 5 days and you're
Yes.
only going to get paid for 4.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And don't get me wrong. I do not believe in scamming. You go to work, you work hard, like you have integrity, you have character, but nothing gets done on that 5th day anyway. And I agree with you. I think it will happen. It might take a generation of the old guys to retire.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the hybrid, I agree with you. And I feel though, maybe it should be something like Wednesday is the day everybody has to be in the office, because then you can really be together. But if it's trickled in.
No, I think most companies have designated in-office days.
Yeah. And they schedule the meetings. What about the argument that you can't get the best talent?
If what?
If you have to be hybrid or you have to be in, right? Because the tech guy, let's face it, they're not shooting the breeze at the water cooler, if you will. They're, probably on the spectrum, in doing their work. So what's the difference if they're here or in Hong Kong, if you will?
Yeah, I think it is industry dependent.
Mm-hmm,
I do.
mm-hmm.
I think there's certain industries where it is much more. Listen, the tech industry started remote work. I feel like they were always the one work from anywhere, go visit all of our
Right.
offices
I
all
agree.
around the world.
Yeah.
I think certain jobs require you to be in, and certain jobs it doesn't matter. And for the jobs that doesn't matter, there should be flexibility. But I think the biggest, even in the pandemic, the biggest thing was, service providers or retail employees or our doctors, nurses, etc. Like they don't get to work from home, right? That's a certain industry specific. You work in retail, you're working in a store. So you're choosing to work in that industry. Therefore,
that's your choice.
In a store.
Right. I agree. Right. But like Elon Musk is such a controversial figure. I think he's amazing. I just read his bio, but when he says it's not fair, I'm like, whoa. I went to school for 13 years. I never took a class on life is fair. You choose certain careers, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like that's okay.
Yeah. You're
And
signing up for that. You're signing up for
right.
that. Like even in fashion where we're not saving lives, we had to deal with clothes. You have to physically touch the
texture.
clothes. You have to be there. Well, you have to pack up the samples for a celebrity or pack up the samples to go to a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
That you can't do that from home.
Okay. Since you talked, I was going to go to the personal branding, but you brought up the celebrity. So let's go there. Okay. So you work for Donna Karan, right? And you're a big deal. You're a big deal. You were a big deal. So give us you don't have to tell us who the celebrity was, but give us a great story about any celebrity that people are going to listen to and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. It could be funny. It could be gross. It could be, go anywhere with it. Is that not for being from Madonna? Then maybe they're not. I don't know.
Well, okay, let me think. I think it's more kind of experiencing certain environments. So I'll give you an example. So, celebrities would come in all the time for fittings, all the time. And
no, it's in Manhattan. You worked for Donna Karan in Manhattan, correct? Like, was it on Fifth Avenue?
It was no 557th Avenue. 557th Avenue.
Yeah.
So I was doing Liv Tyler's premiere of Lord of the Rings. And we made her this amazing polka dot hand-dyed silk dress that was coming from India, where it was being hand-dyed. And it was this navy polka dot on this kind of like off-white background dress. And we did our first fitting and she was like, well, I don't know what color I want. So can you make both? And I'm thinking, I mean, I can. That's like really expensive to just make 2 dresses for her to decide later, but like, okay, fine, it's Liv Tyler. So I make both dresses. One was like a seafoam green solid, and the other one was the polka dot one that I described before. So she comes to the fitting when the dresses come in, and there's, when you hand dye something, like sometimes like the darker dye, it bleeds out like a tiny
Right.
little
Yeah.
bit onto the white. So she like holds up the dress and she was like, "You see that right there?" And I'm like, literally that like freckle of blue on white. I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "It it's I think this is distorted. Like I don't think I can wear this." And I'm like, "This is like a tiny, like you can't even, and in a picture no less, you wouldn't see this even up close. Like it was nothing." And I was like, "Liv, like it's really tiny. Like I just don't think it's going to be a big deal." She's like, I feel like I don't feel good about it. It's like not perfect." And I'm like, "Okay, but it's like hand dyed. Like there's going to be imperfections in hand dyeing." So
A definition. Yeah.
long story short, it was just this torturous appointment. And she's so nice, but she's so particular. And when they get
Mhm.
so particular, you're kind of just like, there's like not a lot of leeway for what you can do. So the morning of the Lord of the Rings premiere, we have a blizzard in New York City. And there is
What year was this? You must remember the year. I'm trying to remember now.
I don't remember the year. I can look it up, but there's a
Okay. A long
blizzard.
time ago. Yeah.
Long time ago. Blizzard in New York City. There's no, like, we can't get a car. If cars
No
can't come
train.
there, no, there's only the train, no cars. Okay.
Okay.
So now I'm thinking, oh, great. If this polka dot dress gets wet, it's going to bleed even more. Okay. But there's no way to get there other than the subway. So I pack up these dresses. I pack them in plastic, then I pack them in a garment bag. I go on the subway. She lives downtown on Fifth Avenue. And I get out of the subway and I'm with a colleague and we're carrying these dresses. And I fall. I trip because I don't see where the curb, you can't see the curb because the snow is so deep. And I
Right.
fall with the garment bag into the snow. And I'm like, this is it. It's game over. This dress is destroyed. We get into her apartment and it ends up being fine. And it was just this very dramatic, like snow trek for this, and it was fine. But those are the kinds of things like you just deal with, like a lot of people who want it the way they want it. And, people have to jump through hoops to get it to them.
Well, that's a great story because and it really is a great segue into personal branding because, as you described her as a perfectionist, right? People tend to think, oh my God, somebody's a perfectionist in the negative connotation, but that perfectionism is born, I think, in passion. And you want somebody to be passionate about what they do, right? Especially if you're an actress. So let's talk about helping people create their personal brand, which I know is one of your geniuses.
Oh, well, thank you. I would give one counterpoint to that and say that
Okay.
I think sometimes striving for perfectionism is actually a sign of insecurity because you're
Oh,
so
sure.
scared that it's not going to be perfect. I believe in progress, not perfection, personally. Yeah, so personal
My
branding.
Peloton instructor says that progress, not perfection. You
Yeah.
forget which one.
I
Yeah.
don't do Peloton, but yes. On brand, shape your narrative, share your vision, shift their perception is, my new book that came out in April. And I wanted to create a comprehensive guide to personal branding that puts equal emphasis on if you want to have a social media presence or if you don't. Because I think
Mhm.
you can have a very strong personal brand either way. And, we know tons of people who are not on social media, who have incredible businesses, who have, dynamic personalities, wonderful
Oh, hang on,
network.
Aliza, let me interrupt you for a moment. I don't know if people know that. I don't know if people believe that you can be incredibly successful in business and not be on social media. So speak to that a little bit. And I don't know if that's a generational thing, but as you said that, I'm like, oh, this is interesting for people to hear. Sometimes I feel like you're still, people are still in their soul. Like, I don't care what you have for breakfast, honestly. I don't need to see a picture of your eggs.
Right. So actually you hit the nail on the head. So one of the first exercises in On Brand, because it is a workbook, is really visualizing your brand across all your different facets through a Venn diagram, right? Multiple circles,
Mm-hmm.
work circle, personal circle, passion circle, side hustle circle, whatever you want. Um, that visualization helps you understand how to create your content pillars and your brand guardrails, where you have permission to play, what you should speak about, and what you shouldn't. So, yes, telling people what you have for breakfast, I don't think that that's a content strategy that people need to employ, right? One of the things I'd say to the people who don't want to be on social media is you can't be a ghost. You need to be findable. So, you need to have a personal website and be on LinkedIn. At the very, very least, be on LinkedIn and have a fully, completed profile. People who are ghosts, that to me is a red flag in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
But you do not need to be posting on Instagram your breakfast or your personal life. And you also can be very successful on social media without sharing your personal life. It all comes down to your guardrails and where they
Mm-hmm.
begin and where they end. But when we talk about people who have successful personal brands, I think of it in terms of, have you shaped your narrative and communicated your value to your network in a way in which they can speak about you when you're not in the room? So
Mm-hmm.
if you are someone who has done that, then you're probably being thought of for opportunities when you're not even in the room that other people haven't heard of yet. And that is the magic of a strong personal brand. And honestly, Patty, it's everyone has some version of one. You can't not
Mm-hmm.
have, people are consuming you, right? It's what you say, it's what you do, it's what you don't say, it's what you choose to align with, it's your passions, your energy, your attitudes, all those things together. People are making an impression and within 7 seconds. So you have a personal brand. The question is, what do you want to be known for? And is that how you're messaging yourself? That is the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of On Brand.
Okay, so there's so many social media, there's so many ways to be found. It can be daunting and overwhelming. What do you see as the biggest mistake people make when it comes to their branding?
TMI, first of all, incon-
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
inconsistency.
So I want the listeners to hear there can be too much information about you out there. There can be too much. Get
Yes.
off.
I have a 15 question quiz in my book. Are you bragging? Because nobody wants to listen to someone who just talks about themselves all day. So how do you create a content strategy then that shows people your thought leadership without you just tooting your own horn? That's an art. That's something that I teach in On Brand. So it is a fine balance. So people who share too much, people who talk about themselves all day, people that are super inconsistent, people that don't know their brand guardrails, so they're all over the place. There's so many pitfalls, and there's such easy fixes to make it work for you instead of against you.
Mhm. So talk about the personal guardrails because I'm thinking about boundaries, like a social media boundary. So talk about that because you're really great at that.
Well, I think, an easy one is, if you don't want people stalking your kids as a celebrity, don't post pictures of your kids, right? It's like when you open the floodgates and you let people into your world and you're showing everything, then when people start taking pictures of you on the street or talking about every aspect of your life, you can't sit there and wonder, oh, how did that happen? Or how dare them do that, right? So,
Let me ask you a question. I've seen stars. I'll mention it to you or figures afterwards where they have pictures of their children with like a heart over it or a hand over it. So you cannot recognize their face. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I know people who do that as well. I guess my question would be, what is the purpose of that content? For
Yeah.
you to show that you have a family, but you don't want to show your family, but you're giving me a glimpse into like their ages because you can kind of tell how old they are. Like, I think every single person who posts something on social media should have a mental filter every single time, which is, why am I sharing this? What is the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of this content? That's your first guardrail. The second guardrail is, if you wouldn't feel comfortable seeing your post as a full page ad in the New York Times, don't post it, because screenshot is way more powerful than the delete button. And the internet is written in a damn Sharpie. So you have to know
Mm-hmm.
your guardrails, or you can get yourself in so much trouble, especially in the world we live in today, where there's so many things that are upsetting or you're passionate about, or you feel like you have to say something. Well, do you think about who your stakeholders are? If you say that thing, what are your clients going to think? What's your boss going to
Mm-hmm.
think? What are your children going to think? So really thinking through pebble in the pond, you throw a pebble into the pond, that ripple effect.
The ripple.
That's how I
Mm-hmm.
always like to visualize a social media post that can go wrong.
Interesting. What percent, this might be a silly question, so you can tweak it however you want. What percentage of success and failure do you attribute to somebody's social media presence? And is it fair to say you have a social media brand? I would imagine it has to be consistent with your personal brand. Are they interchangeable?
You have one personal brand and social media falls within that. So you don't have a
Mm-hmm.
separate social media brand. It should really be a overarching personal brand. And then you think of it in terms of a dresser, right? That's your
Mm-hmm.
whole personal brand. And then you have drawers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can be different things in each drawer, which is why that Venn diagram is really helpful in identifying that. Sorry, what was your
Oh,
question?
I love to draw though, because there's different aspects of your life in
Different
every
aspects,
draw, but it's still
but they
you.
need to fit within the dresser, right? So
Right.
that's where the guardrails come in. If it doesn't fit within the dresser, then it shouldn't be spoken about.
Yeah, no, I was asking you about social media brand versus personal brand, and you answered it. You answered it.
Okay.
Okay, so how do you think AI is going to influence the future of personal branding?
I think there are a lot of efficiencies, a lot of great efficiencies that come with AI. I think that
Well,
AI,
how so specific to personal branding? Like, what is it a great efficiency that will impact your personal brand?
so if you were writing your bio, for example,
Mhm.
you can give it a very strong prompt. Show me how to write a bio
Mm,
for a marketing executive, mom of two kids. It can give you thought starters.
mhm,
I would never recommend taking the actual content from ChatGPT, because they're giving you back everything that's been ingested in the first place, right? So you have no idea where these words are coming from. You have no idea where these images are coming from. There's a new AI where it's text to video. You can literally text something
mhm.
and they can make an entire video out of it, which is taking away jobs from creatives,
Oh,
right? Taking away from
yeah.
writers and videographers and graphic designers. So I think it's I think it's a tool that humans need to adopt and learn, but I don't think it should ever replace human thought process and final touch.
I agree. I think ChatGPT and all these other things are great first drafts. That's the way I look at it. A great first draft. So for someone that, do you help other people that create personal brands for people? Do you help them develop their businesses, or do you just do the personal branding for people?
So my consultancy is split two ways. I work with businesses on brand marketing, social media, mostly. So I sort of think of myself as like a rent a CMO. So I dip in and dip out of a lot of
Mhm.
different companies. And then I work with individuals. So authors who need to work on their book launch strategy, for example. A lot of authors don't really know how to do that. People that
Right.
want to improve their personal brands because they want to get more clients. So they need a social media presence. How do you do that? So I work one-on-one. Um, and I work by an hourly rate. I don't have
Mhm.
retainers, which is
Mhm.
great because then people can just sort of use me as they need.
Mhm. Who's your favorite type of person to work with?
Who's
Your
what?
favorite type of your favorite type of client to work with, which doesn't mean you don't like them all, but we all have favorites.
I mean, I guess because I have two books, I love working on the book launches. I love working with authors because they're so talented in writing the books, but they're not marketers. So that's like a
Right.
clean slate, just like starting from scratch. Um, I like clients who are willing to take some personal creative risks. Putting yourself out there is a creative risk. And
Mhm.
a lot of people say they want to like improve their personal brands, but there's work involved with doing that, right? You have to put in the time. So a lot of times people work with me to just hold them accountable to the strategy. Um, but I think I've been fortunate to have some just amazing, it's been women so far, amazing women that I've been able to work with. And I
Mhm.
love my brand clients too.
Great. So I having written two books and knowing plenty of authors,
Mhm.
what you said as a professional, I so can appreciate that. So they're authors, they're great at what they do, but they don't profess to know what you do. So it's amazing. People will hire us for our expertise and then they tell us, no, that's not right. Like, well, who's the expert here? In a very kind way. So being given that grace and that vulnerability, I definitely can see how you would love from a creative and innovative perspective, right?
Yeah. And I mean, in general, like everyone has their set of gifts that they have. And I think if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
hire a consultant, you should let them consult and let them and the beauty of being a consultant is you can say exactly what you're thinking versus when you're an
Right.
employee you cannot say exactly what you're thinking. So I'm very direct in my approach, but I think that tough love works. It's a motivator.
Agree. All right. So tell me this. Um, I was going to ask you about the Super Bowl ads, but I'm going to make it more general because I don't know if you're a football fan or whatever. So, what do you see as what has been one of the biggest mistakes of people that we all would know? And like, so you're not spilling the beans on anybody when it came to projecting someone's personal brand in the media.
Oh my god.
Like, for example, like a product is, I remember years ago when they first launched the new Coke, right? It was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. And you're like, how'd that happen? I'm like, oh, you probably know. So what's the most recent one?
Personal, like celebrity personal brand.
Yeah.
um well, it's interesting because in On Brand I have a chapter. Can I curse on this podcast?
Yes. Go
Okay.
for it. Absolutely.
So
This is
so
real. This is real relationships. We curse.
so the chapter is called Zero Fucks Given Branding. Right? When someone has zero fucks, they're powerful marketers. You can think of
Mhm.
Donald Trump as a zero fucks given marketer.
Yeah.
You can think of Elon
Hmm.
Musk that way.
Musk.
So
Hmm.
Anna Delvey, like you can think of these people
Hmm.
who literally do not care what you
Right.
think. They are going to just do and say whatever they want. And the interesting part of that is they of course have their haters, but they find their audience.
Well,
So
they're authentic. There's an authenticity to that.
and they find their audience. They find the people that actually appreciate them and
Mm.
love their narrative. So I actually think we're in a stage right now where, and it's so funny because I wrote this in On Brands because I said, can we please cancel culture? Where think we're at the point where people are blowing up their personal brand all the time, especially celebrities, because people are so outspoken. But if you noticed, less people are getting canceled today than a couple years ago. So we think back to like Matt Lauer in the Today Show, right? Matt Lauer, canceled, gone, haven't seen him, a ghost. Andrew Cuomo, canceled, had to step down, but now is starting to reappear again. So I think
Chris Cuomo's got a show now.
Yes, but Andrew is now coming out of the woodwork. You know, I just went to an event recently with him. So the point is that your personal brand, if you make a mistake on social media, and this is why in On Brand, I have an entire chapter on crisis communications, PR 101, how you manage if the shit hits the fan, because you're going to build a personal brand. Sometimes you're going to mess up, right? So, celebrities of late, I mean, we've seen different celebrities get dropped by their agents for some of their outspoken activism. But people tend to bounce back more now than previously. So I think.
Well, I also, Aliza, though, I do feel though part of that is people are sick and tired of the cancel culture too.
Yes.
Like I think it's the shift, the societal shift as well.
I think people are sick and tired of cancel culture. So this is my mantra. My mantra is if you're going to speak out, speak within your guardrails that you've established for yourself. Ask yourself, why am I saying this? Why am I posting this? What do I hope to gain from doing this? How does that influence or affect my stakeholders in my life, my family, my business? If you can answer all of those things and say to yourself, am I educated enough to be speaking about this subject? All those things are a go, then go for it. And then if people don't like it and you get in trouble with your personal brand, at least you can say to yourself, you know what? I researched that. I have my facts straight. I feel passionate about this. I'm coming from a place of knowledge. I understand I may lose clients, but I am so passionate about talking about this or doing this thing because it's important to me. It's part of my core values. Then say la vie.
So it's being honest with yourself and your truth. But is there an example you can give that you're like, oh my God, what a mess up. They need to call me for crisis management.
Oh my God. There
even a product.
So many. I mean, I'm trying to think back to like
Bud Light.
Well, okay. So Bud Light is a great example of something that I said no to because it wasn't in my guardrails. That's right when my book came out in April. And I was asked to go on national television to talk about Bud Light. And I declined.
Oh, wow.
And I declined. And it was my book launch week. So, you want all press when your book comes out.
Yes.
I declined. It wasn't in my guardrails. But that is not a failure of a personal brand. That is a.
What is it?
That's a marketing.
Okay.
It's a marketing choice, right? It's a marketing choice for a spokesperson. The question is Dylan on brand for Budweiser? Or Bud Light. Is that the same? I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't. Yeah, me neither. Yeah, I think it's the same.
So we go back to what does it mean to be on brand, right? It's like that's like what you choose to associate with. What think of it in terms of fonts. When you're opening a document and you're about to type something, I'm sure you have a font that you're like, this is my font. This is what I'm going to write with. Everyone has that because it's what you choose to align with. It's how you see yourself. What's on brand for you reflects back on you. So these are just choices. I mean, celebrities they step in shit all the time, but at the same time, there's a level of, you know what? Everyone is making mistakes nonstop now that it almost doesn't matter anymore.
So then, Aliza, I want you to unabashedly promote yourself. Tell people where they can go to get your book, to learn about you.
Okay.
Everything. Go. You're your own PR person.
So I have 2 books. My first book is called Leave Your Mark, which is like The Devil Wears Prada meets career advice. That book is really for college age / young professionals on how work works. My second book on
They need it.
They need it.
They need it. They need it.
My second book On Brand picks up from where Leave Your Mark left off. I'm the first case study. The books are sold Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you buy books. My website is alizalicht.com, ALIZALICHT.com. I'm on all the social channels. And I do a lot of corporate speaking on how to help employees understand how their personal brands matter within an organization. So that's what I'm focusing on now. So I'm doing keynotes for that and workshops. And my paperback of On Brand comes out April 16th. Yay!
Oh, fascinating. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I've learned so much. I know our listeners have, and I think the world needs your message. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Oh my God.
And that concludes Dr. Patty Ann's podcast episode on real relationships. And make sure you leave your mark and you go work on your personal brand. Nobody knows you better than you. So check out all of Aliza's work. I know it will help you and people that you know. And that concludes today's podcast episode. So make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, be well.